everybody, and a very warm welcome to the balcony here at First Presbyterian Church in Evansville, Indiana. I have some music for Advent for you today, some of which is very familiar and other parts which are less familiar. Starting with Bach's famous chorale prelude, Wachet auf, Sleepers Wake, and get ready, because something's about to happen. Bring your lamps to the wedding feast as the bridegroom is approaching. So this is an adaptation that Bach made himself and is the first one of the 6 so-called Schubler chorales, because I believe they were published by somebody called Schubler, and they are from sort of all over the liturgical year, and this is an adaptation which Bach made of a cantata movement where the tenors sing the solo line and the orchestra has continuo with harmony. There's a beautiful melody which rides up above, and really there the piece would be complete. But it turns out to be an ornamentation, complete as it is, to the main melody as it comes through. So today I'm using the gentle flutes up on the swell as the accompaniment, some pedal stuff, and then our German trumpet on the great manual. I hope balances well in our virtual world. So Bach's chorale prelude, Wachet auf, die uns die Stimme. Ruf uns die Stimme. I've got to get my German words in the right order. Well, we heard the watchman's cry there in the form of my phone saying somebody was trying to get a hold of me. Maybe it's something from on high. So, sticking with Bach and with more of his music from Advent, this time from the Orgelbüchlein. Last week I played the very first chorale in that collection, setting of Nun komm der Heiden Heiland, and a little bit more on that melody coming later on this morning. But I'm going to play the next three chorales in the set, which are for the Advent season, starting with, oh yes, Gott durch deine Gott. Now, there's a couple of separate settings, in other words, different texts, which go with this same tune, one of which is for Advent and one of which is not for Advent. One of the interesting things to listen out for in this chorale is the canonic writing. So you'll hear in the pinky finger of the right hand the melody moving along, and then 3 beats later you'll hear it being repeated following along in the pedal line, and that's a rather clever thing to do. Of course, Bach was extremely clever. The other thing to notice is that there's a continuous motion in what might be the alto part. So you've got the tune on top, then you've got flowing eighth notes. I should say these are in whole notes. The alto part is in eighth notes, and then the bass part, which moves along, is in quarter notes, and they all keep moving at those exact same speeds throughout the entire chorale. There are some textual reasons why Bach might have written a canon here, involving the text, maybe the other text where it says, "Please lead us to the fatherland." And then there's also a reference in the first verse where it says, lead us, guide us to your service as a part of the Advent journey. So, here's the first one. This is BWV 600, Gott durch deine Güte. Next up is Herr Christ, der einge Gottessohn. Lord Christ, the only Son of God, the eternal Father, risen from God's heart. As it is written, he is the morning star. He sends forth his splendor brighter than any other stars. So a brighter registration here to reflect this text. It's not a very well-known hymn tune these days, but the tune sounds like this. you'll notice that the opening interval there is 1 up to 3, and all the way through this, the accompaniment is an expansion of that teeny wee little motive. Da-dee-da. And it comes all the way through in flowing 16th notes. And finally, from the Orgelbuchlein today, a setting of what we know as Creator of the Stars of Night. This has become quite popular, at least here at First Presbyterian in Evansville, and we certainly do it every single year. It's an ancient piece of Gregorian chant, Veni Redemptor Omnium, sorry, no, that's totally the wrong one, that's Nunc Om Heil in Heiland, Conditor Alme Siderum, and we do it with chimes and bells. Creator of the stars of night, your people's everlasting light, etc., etc. So the tune is slightly different when Bach is setting it here, and he changes the inflection just a little bit of the modal part of the chant so that it fits more with his more modern tonal language. One of the interesting things about the very end of this is that the melody has been on the top the whole time, and then in the final measure, the accompanimental figures kind of erupt up and eventually sit on top of the tune. All the while, the pedal line, if you happen to be able to see my feet moving down there, it starts with an octave leap, and then it keeps going down and down and down and down, perhaps signifying the coming of Christ down from heaven to earth. So here is Lob sei dem allmächtigen Gott. Now, you'll recall that last week, all of the music which I played, I think maybe some 10 or 11 pieces, was all based on the chorale tune Nun komm der Heiden Heiland. And one of them was the highly ornamented version from the Leipzig chorales. It's a collection, I think it's called the Great 18, or maybe that's a different collection, I lose track in the end. But there are two more settings which Bach has in the collection. This is BWV 660, which I'm going to play today. It's a really unusual piece, and I thought I'd just talk about a couple of features of it before we get going. You'll recall that the melody starts like that. The accompaniment and the harmony is changed ever so slightly. Which gives it a more harmonic flavor, but also quite a lot more pungency. The structure of the accompaniment is perhaps unique in Bach's writing, in that the introduction of all of the accompaniment is a canon made up of that material in the bass. The left hand, if ever there was an exercise to sort out the coordination, separating the left hand from the pedals, this is it. Now, he calls in the score, or what's quite often done is just 2 8-foot stops. I'm actually going to add the 4-foot stops because I think they come across a little bit better on our live stream and the virtual offering. So I've got 8 and 4-foot in the manual, and often in the pedal then we would have 16 and 8 to perfectly match that. But here we don't. We're not going to do that. We're going to have exactly the same registration from the same family of stops. And one of the great things about this particular instrument is how beautifully voiced these particular pipes are. So in the left hand, we've got these sounds matched in the pedal with these. So they have the same volume, but the coloration of these principal sounds is just ever so slightly different. The chorale melody itself is highly ornamented, but less ornamented than the one previously, and kind of floats above the fray of all of this very, very busy action in the left hand and pedals. So I hope you enjoy this. It's not very often played just for the fun of it, as it's a bit of a trial. Yes, Jerusha's laughing. She had me practicing this, I think. She was just like, oh. So anyway, the Lord, I hope, will be with me as we hear Nun komm der Heiden Heiland as a trio, BWV 660. If you want to hear a truly flawless and beautiful version of that, using just the 8-foot stops, like two cellos might in a trio, check out Caitlin Emerson. She won an organ competition, the big national organ competition a few years back, and she's been putting up all kinds of videos, including all 3 settings of Nun komm der Heiden Heiland from the Leipzig chorales. Caitlin Emerson, spelled with a K. So, yesterday, and in the Presbyterian tradition, we use Valet will ich dir geben melody to some Advent words. O Lord, how shall I greet you? And there was an arrangement made of this chorale melody back in just over 100 years ago. And I have an assistant here today who's going to help me create a 3-manual organ. Again, this is an arrangement of a Bach chorale, cantata arrangement, which Bach had made. So this is an arrangement of a movement from the cantata Christ der ist mein Leben, cantata number 95. And I'm very delighted that my friend Micaiah is here today to help me with the stops as we play this together. And finally, on our Advent journey, today we visit the Annunciation and Mary's response to it in the form of the Magnificat. Now, for generations before the advent of harmony, these words, Magnificat anima mea Dominum, had been set to all kinds of different chants and tunes. And Bach, in a freely composed work, well, it's called one of the freely composed works. It's absolutely one of the most amazing fugues out there. He takes the melody. Oh, I'll stick with the clarinet. Here we are. And he spins an entire double fugue around that using some contrasting material. And so on. Finally, at the very end, the melody enters thunderously in long note values, which are twice as long as what we've been hearing throughout. Now, along the way, Bach introduces the tune numerous times, and at the outset, he builds it up into actually 5 voices and then pares it back down to 2. But when the music enters again, it is often accompanied by itself in some form of canonic entry. So, and they're often hidden. Sometimes it's a pair between the top 2 voices. In one instance, it's hidden in the middle as the second voice down. In another instance, it's between the top voice and the bass voice, and all sorts of stuff going on. So I hope that you're able to catch this tune as it meanders through. So here, ending our time together, is BWV 733, Bach's Fugue on the Magnificat. So, thanks again for joining me this Thursday lunchtime. Join us for worship services online on Sunday mornings at 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. Next Thursday is Christmas Eve, and I have decided that I should devote my musical attentions to our 5 o'clock Festival of Lessons, Carols, Candlelight and Communion that afternoon, which will start with the handbells playing at 4:45 in the evening of Christmas Eve. So next Thursday, there will not be a concert on Christmas Eve. Otherwise, thank you very much again for joining me, and I hope the rest of your Advent goes smoothly. Bye-bye.